Hi, hey, hello. How are you? I haven't done one of these in a while. Uh, the big news for the Seahawks today is that they signed Greg Olsen. This was the guy who visited them last week. I think it was Wednesday. He also visited the Buffalo Bills. He visited the Washington Redskins, and he came to the obvious decision. The obvious decision was to sign with the Seahawks. I get that he played for Ron Rivera and that maybe he would like to play for Ron Rivera in Washington instead of Carolina. It's in Washington. You got to play on that dump of a field. You got to play with Dwayne Haskins, who's busy taking selfies with fans in the middle of games when he should be kneeling the ball. You've also got a quarterback in Dwayne Haskins, who we've seen on the sideline basically begging his teammates to give him respect. So that's why Washington wasn't going to happen. And also, when you take a look at the Buffalo Bills, yeah, they were a playoff team last year. Yeah, they have one of the better defenses in the NFL. But do you really want to, if you're Greg Olsen and you've been playing in the NFL for 13 years and you're going to be 35 years old next season, want to play with a quarterback in Josh Allen who will, I don't know, randomly Reggie Bush it while scrambling in the middle of a game? No, you don't want that. You don't want a guy who's going to bomb it into double coverage to a fullback in the last minutes of a game either. This was the obvious choice. It was either he was going to go broadcasting, or if he didn't become a broadcaster, he was going to sign for the Seahawks. So he signs with them a deal that's worth up to $7 million. This is a big move for the Seahawks from this perspective. You know, we talk about the needs that they have this offseason. We know that they need some help on defense, especially if they potentially lose Jadeveon Clowney. We know that there could be some turnover on the offensive line with DJ Fluker, with Jermaine Ifedi, and with Mike Iupati all being free agents. So those are things to be concerned about. And also, I think we all agree that it would not be the worst thing in the world if they addressed the cornerback position. But the Seahawks tight end position is one of the biggest needs that the team had this offseason. I mean, think about the way that this past season went. It should have been towards the top of the offseason checklist. So going into the year, you have Will Dissly coming off of a torn ACL. You didn't have Luke Wilson starting at the start of the season. In fact, you waited a couple of weeks to trade Nick Vannett to the Steelers, and then you signed Luke Wilson, who had been released by the Raiders after Hard Knocks, not because of Hard Knocks. And you had a lot of faith, for whatever reason, that Ed Dickson, who had a knee surgery in August, was going to be able to bounce back from it. Now, they tried and they waited, but Dickson apparently re-aggravated his injury the week he was supposed to actually get back out on the field. So last year, they finished the season with Jacob Hollister, who before this past season had just 16 career targets. A banged-up Luke Wilson, who was dealing with a hamstring and a hip injury down the stretch, and tackle/tight end George Fant on the depth chart. So, I mean, you could do a lot better than that. And especially considering the fact that Russell Wilson seems to have quite the rapport with tight ends. Now, we saw what he did with Jacob Hollister. Again, the guy had 16 career targets in New England, but with the Seahawks, he had 41 catches for 349 yards and 3 touchdowns in 11 games. Will Dissly, meanwhile, in 10 career games with the Seahawks, has had 31 catches for 418 yards and 6 touchdowns. And we also know, Greg Olsen is signing up, I think, for a really good situation because he's going to get the ball a lot. And I just base it off of the decline in Russell Wilson's play after Dissly went down with the season-ending Achilles injury. His completion percentage dropped from 73% to 63%. His yards per attempt went down from 9.03 to 7.5. Both of those are pretty big drops, especially considering the seasons that Russell Wilson had. So I think that Greg Olsen's actually going to be able to produce here. And I think there is a lot of reservation over the fact that this is a 35-year-old, totally fair, who only played 7 games in 2017, only played 9 games in 2018. He actually played 8 games in 2017 if you count the playoffs. And the problem is his right foot keeps on getting hurt. He broke his right foot in week 2 of 2017. He was out for, I think, 10 weeks, 11 weeks. My math's not great when it comes to weeks in the NFL. He re-aggravated the injury his first game back after missing a long period of time. This was in week 12. But he still finished the season. He had a really good game against the Packers down the stretch. He had a really good game against the Saints in the playoffs where they lost. He had 8 catches, 107 yards, and a touchdown. I think he had more yards receiving against the Green Bay Packers down the stretch. 2018, first game of the year. And you can watch this on All or Nothing on Amazon, the season about the Carolina Panthers. He refractured his foot in week 1. Now, he only missed 3 weeks, and holy smokes, that's pretty tough that he was able to bounce back from that. But then, week 13, he ruptured his plantar fascia. Fascia? I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not a doctor. Do you want me to be a doctor? Plantar fascia. Fascia. I don't know. Whatever. So that ended his year. So 2017 to 2018 doesn't play a whole lot. You would think, okay, well, there's a good chance if in 2017 he had a right foot injury and in 2018 he re-aggravated said foot injury that in 2019, yikes, it could happen again. No, those injuries did not resurface this past season. He only missed week 14 and 15 with a concussion, and he actually had pretty good production last season. Remember, Cam Newton was basically gone for the year, week 2. And you take a look at some of the guys that were throwing to him. Kyle Allen, who stinks. Will Grier, who really stinks. He had 52 catches for 597 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, in conclusion, good move by the Seahawks. Smart move by the Seahawks. This was one of their under-the-radar needs this offseason. They don't technically have a tight end on the roster right now because Will Dissly is recovering from a torn Achilles. That is a really tough injury to come back from, especially when you're a big-bodied guy. And, you know, it's his second straight offseason now, rehabbing from a torn, from a serious injury. You got to wonder what's his psyche going to be going forward after something like that. This is a well-liked guy. I don't know what his run blocking is like. I'm not going to lie to you and act like I study run blocking for tight ends. I'm too lazy for that. But given that he was in a system in Carolina that they like to run the football, I don't think that he's going to be a giant liability on that front. I did read, like, the internet says he's one of the worst tight ends run blocking that there is. He can't be Jimmy Graham, but this is a guy who's not you're bringing in for run blocking. You're bringing him in to be a receiver. I still think he can produce, but important here. The Seahawks should not think that they are done at tight end. You got to bring back Jacob Hollister, who is a free agent, as I mentioned before. At least try to. I don't think that he's going to be able to make that much. And honestly, I think you got to convince him, hey, look, we found a way to make you work. We found a way to get your numbers. You aren't going to be able to do that elsewhere. That might involve some psychological warfare, but that's the approach that I would take with Jacob Hollister. So in conclusion, they shouldn't finish here. I think that you got to draft a tight end as well.